Good evening. Happy Thursday. My name is KAMOTA MAYONDI.
And I'm SALIFYANJI. Good evening to our
And
viewers.
yes, good evening, Sally. Good to see you.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. And it's a lovely Thursday. And for the past couple of weeks, it's been cold, but I thought today was a little bit warmer. I know you and I tend to complain
Although
about the cold.
I couldn't tell the difference. So. Maybe it's because I was indoors for like a long time, so I was still feeling a bit cold. But it would be nice for the weather to just suddenly change because I need the sun.
You need the sun.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we get right into the stories that we're leading with on tonight's episode of News Report. So the Minister of General Education expelled from cabinet and police are investigating a video. TIZ Action Aid demand tough action on Auditor General reports.
And Lusaka PF displeased with Bonnie Capiso. And in international news, US lawmakers grill big tech CEOs at House antitrust hearing. So we get right into the details of today's story. By the way, if you want to send your comments and contributions, please do so on our number that is 0976-599-547, as well as our Facebook live feed. We'll be able to read them out when you send them through.
Right.
Over to you.
There, and that's some very important information to have. So the number does appear at the bottom of the screen if you'd like to send a text message that we will be able to read live on air. Starting with the leading story. So it's been a very, very busy day with regard to this particular story. So much is being said on social media. So let's get into the details of it. So the Zambia Police Service are currently investigating a matter involving the production of a pornographic video that has gone viral, where former General Education Minister David Mawumba is allegedly appearing. So Esther Katongo, who is the police spokesperson, says that the video is currently being circulated is under investigation, and she told ZNBC News in Lusaka that the police will only give further details when investigations are concluded. So going further in the story, we have seen that the president has since announced that the minister no longer has his position. He was fired yesterday following the video that emerged. The reasons of his dismissal have not been given in this particular letter of dismissal. And what has now happened is that the position has now been taken. Let's go back first of all. First of all, the government has been a bit quiet, but we've definitely seen comments from the Ministry of Religious Affairs, where Godfrida Sumaili has urged the public to stop circulating the video, saying that it is unethical and immoral for people to continue circulating the video. So the religious minister has also appealed to parents to delete naked videos from their phones, saying that they would be very damaging to one's reputation in the event that they are leaked to the public. And the Reverend further stated that the general minister is the former general education minister at this point is a family man, and whoever played a role in leaking this video is wicked and obscene. So I'd just like to pause on this particular story a little while. We have definitely seen a lot of silence when it's come to the reason why he was fired, and we've seen the Minister of Religious Affairs coming out to essentially rebuke the people who are circulating this video, also pointing out a religious aspect of it, also pointing out a spiritual aspect to it. Before we get further into the story, I just want to pause here at the thoughts of the minister. It's interesting to see that there's a very, very firm rebuking of people circulating the video. And also, I'm very confused about urging parents to delete videos on their phones if they do possess them. I would expect the minister to have discouraged people from having these videos in the first place and from creating these videos in the first place. Where do you feel that statement comes from?
Okay, since we are focusing on the religious minister for now, yes. I do agree that the first thing that the minister should have done, being a minister of religious affairs, first of all, in the first instance, I feel that she shouldn't have spoken too soon. Maybe once she had all the information, because what she said in her statement really was very, contradictory to what the actual thing was, actually actually was. She said, no, we're still investigating. There's just someone that looks like the minister, but it can't really be the minister. I think for everyone that may have seen the video, it's so clear to see that was the minister himself. And obviously by her saying that, she could have been saying that, no, someone may have photoshopped, that particular video and whatnot. But then again, KAMOTA, I'm sure you could have heard or seen that the video was shot like in different places, and to actually still feel that someone was accused, of having, recorded this video, is kind of not a good thing when we can see it in black and white. So now, what I feel the minister should have done, once she had spoken out, was the fact that it would have been prudent to actually condemn the production of this video or the call in itself. So it's alleged that this video was not recorded by the minister, but it was a video call, and the person on the receiving end is the one that circulated this particular video. So in her statement, she also said that Mr. Dr. Mawomba is a parent, is a father of a nation, and it wouldn't be a good thing to actually expose or talk about him in that way. That is very embarrassing. First of all, as a parent, you have a responsibility to lead by example. I know this is one thing that you hate when you talk about the politicians or the leaders being parents. No, I'm just saying it's something that you would say we shouldn't really keep on calling them, our parents. They are our leaders. So when it comes to whether you're a leader, whether you're a parent, and being in a position of, of influence, there is an aspect of, morality there. You have to be in the right standing, because people will judge you even more, based on what you actually do. And being the the education minister in that regard really is just it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. But since we're talking about the minister of religious affairs in this case, I should feel I feel she spoke too soon, and also that once she had said her part, she could have just condemned the video and cautioned everyone that does that to stop doing it, because obviously people are still doing it. And the difference is that not every secret has been exposed, but once it is exposed, then it becomes a problem. Yeah.
So getting into the alleged video that's currently circulating, so there's the whole aspect of, there are conversations around the video happening. Others are saying, but is it a crime because it wasn't an actual pornographic video? It was a recording of an intimate moment between two people,
that obviously trust each other,
but then we'll put aside the fact that if this is indeed the honorable minister, there's all these other conversations happening, despite the fact that he is or was a leader as a minister. There's the fact that he belongs to, he's married, he belongs to a church. There are all these other conversations that come by the way. But it's also now just looking at the fact that it clearly wasn't intended to go out. And we now have a situation where he's lost his job. It's a very embarrassing situation to have, whatever the reason for him being dismissed is. But if indeed the alleged video that's been circulating is indeed linked back to him, I, for one, wish that he had an opportunity to resign on moral grounds than to have been fired. But everything seems to have been going very, very quickly. But getting back into generally what's been happening around the PF, there's been a lot of controversy for the past couple of months. And not too long ago, the Minister of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs, Lawrence Sichalwe, was alleged to have posted a pornographic video in a WhatsApp group, and the Zambia police said that Mr. Sichalwe committed an offense for being in possession with a pornographic video, and by virtue of him sharing it. So according to the law in Zambia, this is it's an offense. So just a little extract from the Penal Code: publicly exhibiting any indecent show, performance, or any performance tending to corrupt morals. So pornography, distribution, pornography, creating pornographic materials definitely go into this particular category. And if found guilty of a misdemeanor such as this, a person is liable to imprisonment for 5 years or a fine not less than 15,000 penalty units or more than 75,000 penalty units. So definitely not legal in Zambia. So getting back to what exactly is the next steps in situations like where we had this particular minister, Mr. Tsichalwe, Mr. Lawrence Tsichalwe, Honorable Tsichalwe, it goes on to say that he had allegedly posted that video accidentally, but the police are in the view that for the fact that it was posted by you, you were in possession of it. And the police further went to say that the law is not segregative and Mr. Tsichalwe would be prosecuted if found guilty, even though he is a minister.
Now let's also, sorry to cut you,
no, go ahead.
Let's also flip this around and compare the two situations.
Right.
Yes, fine. The minister of higher education, the former minister of higher education, did not probably mean for that video to be put out in the open, and coming to Mr. Tsichalwe, he also posted the video by mistake. So clearly, there are two different situations here where I feel that the minister of traditional affairs meant to share the video with someone. He just sent it into the wrong group. On the other hand, the former minister of higher education did not mean to have his video exposed like that. Now, when it comes to application of the law, I think we'll still go back to it being very selective. I feel even the time that this mistake happened, pertaining to the traditional affairs minister, Mr. Lawrence Tsichalwe, I think the same thing should have been done, where he should have been fired from his position as the traditional affairs minister as well. Maybe the difference is that
but bearing in mind, no one has come out to yet outrightly, especially anyone in leadership, no one has come out to outrightly say this is indeed Honorable Mavumba, and that's the reason.
But if it's wrong, the question is, if it is not him, if it's not Honorable Mavumba, why has he been
quiet?
No, not really the quiet part, we'll get to that, but why has he been fired from his position quickly like that?
The timing.
Because obviously the president would have said, or his spokesperson would have said, no, a bit of time will be given to investigate into this matter more, and then we'll give you details of what particular happened, or if we think this is the minister or not. But it happened too quick.
Well, from a public relations perspective and managing a story, I would have liked to see a bit more, not necessarily unity, but something a bit structured, where the story has, as it rolls out, has a bit of structure. Like, well, this is indeed a very embarrassing situation to be in regardless. But I feel it's possible to do some damage control. It's possible to do some damage control.
Do you think maybe this was beyond their capacity to actually stand together with the minister? Or maybe I feel that you're coming from a position, well, if I'm wrong, correct me, but you're coming from a position where we see one government or one party, one cabinet divided when it's supposed to, work together. So, we've seen someone being fired, or a minister make an announcement, pertaining to the time that the mayor may have done, something, and there were contradictory stories. So maybe you're speaking from a point where they're divided, amongst themselves as a unit when they're supposed to actually be working together.
Are we saying that?
Is there maybe poor PR when it comes to issues to do with leadership and governance?
Well, not necessarily. I feel not that it's poor PR per se, but I feel it's possible to drive a narrative. If like this is an entire government, they can speak together and say, look guys, across the board, this is our position. This is what's happened. This is our position. I don't know what happens behind the scenes. All parties involved, the alleged minister who is in the situation, ministry, because right now, who do we need to hear from? We need to hear from the president. We need to hear from Honorable Mavumba. We would, of course, because we're a Christian nation, would also hear the religious affairs minister speak. But it would be nice to sort of see a certain amount of not really like the statements are conflicting per se, but to see a narrative that's slightly controlled, but where the story unfolds with the least possible damage. And this is why I personally wish that the minister was allowed or acted quick enough to resign as opposed to be fired. And then, of course, we don't expect him to be kept if indeed that video is of him. We don't expect him to be kept. Though, on the other hand, there's also been talk about, like, coming slightly into the point that you raised, to say, on one end, this happens, it almost feels like the party or the government comes together to protect or shield. On the other hand, it's like, oop, you have to go, you're on your own.
Yeah.
This, we cannot be associated to this, right? And on the other hand, we have corruption allegations. We have so many ills and wrongs happening in government, but we don't see that quick action with regard to people stealing public funds, people going to court to be tried for crimes or for having been in possession of properties that are alleged proceeds of crime, and we still have these people going every day to their job. So with me, it's wrong is wrong, yes, but we tend to pick and choose when it is good to distance, when it is good to lean in. So for me, it's that type of thing it's that type of uncomfort I have with the way that we choose when to fire, when to practice brotherly Christian love and that type of thing.
Do you know what I think also? I think the statements are divided because of one thing.
What?
Dr. Muvumba was not called. No one called him when the news came out. I feel that if someone had called him and said, hey, this is what we've heard, what's going on, are you okay? Then they would have been able to
say, what's our strategy?
Exactly, to build a strategy based on what he was going to say. If he was going to admit and say, guys, yes, that's happened, that is could be me, even if he doesn't say that is me, that could be me, but help me out, guys. I think it would have been a different story. Then they would have a uniform
like
story.
the job would have been lost, but the story would be controlled.
And from the statement released by the religious minister herself, she said she has not spoken to him. And the first thing that I expect also from her is to go and find out. One thing about Christianity is that I think Christians, the problem with Christians is that when trouble comes, you want to move away from it and say, yo, I have nothing to do with it. All of a sudden we become Peters and we become Judas Iscariot. We forget the people that were supposed to actually be there for.
Right?
And I think it's something that we've seen going on even in churches. When someone does a wrong, when someone falls pregnant or anything, they will expel you from the church. But what's supposed to happen is where someone goes through some disciplinary action. This man, if it is him, he needs help. He needs someone to counsel him. He needs someone to talk to, because then again, we've heard stories circulating about, some news broke out saying he had, fake news. He had tried to commit suicide, which was not even the case.
Right.
And also, before we report certain news, we need to make sure we find out the facts, what is really going on the ground.
So I like the point that you raised about the fact that we haven't heard, like they didn't, it seems
there's
like she has said
brother's keeper in this case.
There's no brother's keeper in this particular instance, and it would have been good to reach out, but it would also have been a situation where rumors would not have started in the event that we actually heard from the alleged from the situation, to say like, okay, this is the situation. On these grounds, I'm stepping down. So I don't know if the silence is because there's a strategy trying to be found, a way to rectify. Well, the damage seems pretty done.
Do you think it would be better to actually come out while it's still hot, or come out when the dust has settled a bit? Maybe there could be a situation where they're waiting for the dust to at least settle and then come out in the open.
Really,
but I feel that it should come out and just say, I am sorry and I am stepping down. Like that, when you own your mistake, it's so much easier for people to just forgive you and move away from it. And a lot of people are saying, yes, he was wrong, but let's not condemn him, because people are doing so much worse than he probably did.
I personally, from the way that I understand my people, my beautiful Zambian people, we are very religious. And in the event that we had a very sorry, a very, this is what I've done, forgive me, and that type of thing, I believe that there's room to reconcile. I feel that's who we are as a people. We have a certain rooting in our Christian beliefs. I really feel that it's possible. Yes, the job may be lost and there's certain things that would not be undone, but I don't think it's it's done.
Yeah.
I really don't believe. So getting back into the way that the story unfolds, you have something to add?
Can I just add
yeah?
one more thing? So the religious minister said, or urged the public to stop circulating the video, saying that it was unethical and immoral for people to continue circulating the video. When you tell a child to stop, they'll actually continue. So that is the case. So it shouldn't be about stopping to circulate the video. I think now we've already talked about it. It's about going to the ground and finding ways of just doing the damage control.
Right.
Yeah.
So getting now back into the story. So meanwhile, the Patriotic Front Deputy Secretary General Mumbi Piri told the Daily Revelation that she does not know about Dr. Mavumba's upbringing and that he does not represent the character of the PF. So when it comes to this this particular interview from the Daily Revelation, it's interesting to note that they've distanced, the PF has definitely said this does not reflect the values of the party, which is fair enough. But it's interesting to see that we don't see such statements coming around when there's corruption. And on the other hand, it now gets down to, the story has many layers. It has the layer of people coming forward to speak and people not. And there's also the aspect of breaking fake news, which the IBA spoke about through Ms. Mapoma. And we take a break and we'll be back with more stories. After the break, we take a look at TIZ demanding action against the for the Auditor General's report. Stay tuned.
You are watching News Report. Welcome back, and I'm SALIFYANJI BWEUPE.
And I'm KAMOTA MAYONDI.
And so into our next story, Patriotic Front Lusaka Provincial Secretary Kennedy Kamba says the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. Bonnie Kapeso, is being extremely malicious by dragging the ruling party in a criminal matter involving Eastern Province PF Youth Chairperson Emmanuel J. Banda. And Mr. Kamba has wondered how the police force would place to start killing members of the ruling party at will. So pertaining to this story, we did bring attention to the public where Lusaka Central Police was stormed in or attacked by some people that were believed or allegedly to have been led by Emmanuel J. Banda, and now the police is on manhunt looking for him. So whilst on Unze Radio yesterday, Mr. Kapeso accused the ruling party of knowing where Mr. Emmanuel J. Banda is hiding and said the next time he encounters 10 PF officials in a public bedroom, maybe only 2 will survive. So when he spoke, he addressed the media at PF Provincial Headquarters in Lusaka on Wednesday. Mr. Kamba said Emmanuel Banda, who is accused of aggravated robbery, should be dealt with as an individual because he has no blessings from the PF. And so we strongly feel that Mr. Kapeso is maliciously dragging the PF as a ruling party in the alleged misconduct of individuals who must personally face the law if found wanting, rather than dragging the party into misdeeds, said Mr. Kamba. I don't know what your thoughts are pertaining to this particular story, but when you look at now everything being so politicized, so as long as you belong to a certain political party and whatever you do, whether it's as an individual or as a group, as long as you've been pointed out, you'd have some people, on you, following you, wow, condemning your acts as well. And it's so sad that we have, Kennedy Kamba, who is a provincial secretary, saying, no, we are washing our hands, of Emmanuel Band because we have nothing to do with that as well. So then again, the same party, but, it seems as if there's some division here and
right
there. Yeah.
So I like the point when you talk about it seems like there is people step away to say, yeah, we can't associate with you with this. When you're a leader, I think that's what leadership means. When you act in your own capacity, people still in the back of their mind will be like, that person, they're for the PF, or they're for the UPND, or they're for the MMD. So this is why we need our leaders to be of a certain caliber, so that even when they're acting in their own personal capacity, they're still reflecting the values of the party that they represent. Exactly. And this leads back to, for example, in the earlier story where there was a statement by Mumbi saying that we don't identify with this behavior as a party, or we don't know how they were raised. We remove ourselves from it. Yes, but it seems terribly convenient, and this is why at the end of the day, well, these are different situations, that's a given. At the end of the day, this is why it's important that parties, political parties, have within their crop people who reflect their values through and through, so that you don't have situations where too often, of course it would happen naturally, but you don't have a situation where too often you're now saying, no, but this one is, we don't know how they were raised, no, we currently don't identify with that. It also goes, like, to give a more personal or close example, how when you work somewhere, you're a reflection by virtue of you and I being on live TV. In part, we're an extension of life,
Yeah.
So there's also that thing where if someone saw you somewhere, they'll be like, Sally from live TV, so there's all that, whether you work somewhere and you're not necessarily an individual, you die a little bit to total self.
Exactly. So when it comes to, yes, so there has to be an element of representation. So whichever body you work for, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was thinking of the same thing. Whichever organization you work for, you are working under, there are standards that have been set. There are rules that you need to follow through and everything else. But if you are found in a position where you are not really following the guidelines or the rules that have been set for that particular organization, misrepresenting it, I think it just gives a bad name. The members say it messes up the taste of all the other groundnuts and everything else. So we need to be at a point where, and as much as, there could be someone that would have a grudge against you, if there's something that you need to do, I think go back, table it down and see how best you can, go about dealing with the matter in a very mature and amicable way as well. And, one thing about life is that it will take you years to build something, build a reputation, and character is one thing that is very important. And it will take you only one day to actually have everything tumble down. Everything that you've worked hard for could just be gone in a few seconds, and that would be the end of you as well. So really going back to what the deputy inspector of police said, when he talked about if there are 10 officials in a room, only 2 will survive. For me, I feel yes, that was a threat, but I don't think it should have been misinterpreted or misunderstood in that regard, where someone said, okay, maybe you're saying that then you start killing people.
I think the police,
yes, the police is trying to really also distance itself from really being, found like labeled as being partisan,
right? Okay,
because it's
like
supposed to remain non-partisan.
Right.
So I feel that the police is also trying to just like say no, we're not going to favor anyone. We're not going to apply selective. We're not going to apply the law selectively, but we're going to do what needs to be done and maintain law and order as well. So I think this is a threat, and many other people have talked about breaking people's legs, but I don't mean they meant it in a literal sense. Sometimes you'd say something out of anger, but then again,
I refuse.
Anger management. I think before you face the public, before you go to respond to any questions as well, you need to be prepared to just be able to say things that will not come back.
There have been too many statements that can be misconstrued.
Exactly.
I think we need people to be very careful with how they're uttering words, because one person will take it this way to say you're inciting violence, the other will say. I feel like when it comes to communication from certain officers, they cannot afford to keep it in the gray area. They absolutely cannot afford. Yeah.
Okay, so to continue with the story, Mr. Kamba reminded the police boss that it is in fact their commander-in-chief and leader of the Patriotic Front who has instructed the immediate arrest of his Eastern Province Youth Chairman to demonstrate the ruling party's respect for the rule of law. To demonstrate how we respect the law and police officers as a party, President Lungu on Saturday during the Central Committee meeting directed Home Affairs Minister Honorable Stephen Kampiongo to make sure that JJ was brought to book. Why should Mr. Kapeso then turn to the PF and its general membership and say we know where JJ is hiding? Such comments are sheer slander and malicious against the PF. And many could be saying that he's probably even, left the country. Maybe that's why they can't find him. But the police are also saying, no, since he belongs to the PF, you should know where he's hiding.
Well, I always get happy when the president comes out to speak to condemn something that is wrong. So that is good. So it's now important to see that it's now up to the police to follow through, to find this person and take them through the necessary
bring them to book.
Steps.
Yeah. Right. So meanwhile, PF in Matero constituency has given its area member of parliament, Honorable Lloyd Kazia, up to Friday this week to exculpate himself for subjecting the name of the party to public ridicule following his altercation with Matero Ward 28 Councillor Anit Nyanta and unwarranted media statements. PF constituency chairman Crispin Kabole said the party in Matero has already received an exculpatory letter from Councillor Chinyanta, and the disciplinary committee will proceed to sit on Saturday, 1st August 2020. So this is a story that was brought in courtesy of Smart Eagles. Here's a clip.
The cases facing JJ or any of the PF members who were accused of raiding the police Central Division in Lusaka had no blessings of the party, and Mr. Kapeso knows this very well. Why should then Mr. Kapeso turn to the PF and its general membership and say we know where JJ is hiding? Such comments are sheer slander and malicious against the PF party. JJ or any other member of the party who has issues with the police have no backing of the party and will not be shielded by the party or the president or the secretary general of the party. The police should deal with the matter without involving the party PF. They should deal with an individual as a person. We are responding to the IG based on the statement which has been issued in the Diggers newspaper, today's edition. And before we engage the police, we decided to engage Mr. Ben Kapeso as the Deputy IG of Police through the media.
Over the issues which have transpired in Matero, as a constituency, we took up steps. For example, we wrote to the chairman, we wrote to the honorable MP and the councillor to exculpate themselves against what was going on in the press. We're just waiting for the 7 days to elapse. That's when we'll sit and make decisions. What I would like to say is the issues which the MP is raising, those are internal matters, and the party has got structures in which all the issues can be conveyed. So what I'm appealing to the Honorable Kazia is that we are still waiting for his exculpatory letter. We've already received the exculpatory letter from the councillor, and as a party, it's from this that will be able to make a decision. And we have said, and I'm repeating myself, that none of these, the MP or the councillor, are supposed to speak to the media. In fact, we don't allow people to speak to the media. We've got a system of delivering information.
Okay, so the council is waiting for the exculpatory letter right there, and I really condemned the altercation that went on between the material the material councillor and the minister as well. I feel that there should have been a clear channel of communication pertaining to issues. If you are the MP for a particular area and if you're a councillor, let there be communication, I think, from the council, city council, to the Ministry of Lands, and also to the councillor as well, the minister responsible for that particular area as well. We shouldn't be having such differences going on in the general public. And as we know, when it comes to social media, it tends to twist stories. But then when you can see certain things happening firsthand like that, it really gets to you and has you thinking about the credibility of the source also, and also how accountable these ministers will also be when they need to give their fair share of how they are operating. And also apart from that, we have media reports also, like where you have like we saw in this particular report where they were talking about what was happening in that particular constituency. Well, I'm just trying to say this real quick, but I feel that instead of having to dismiss reports, I think they should get to a point where everybody should get to a point where they have meetings, they sit down, they talk about the code of conduct for the party as well. I think it's okay to still go back and make sure everything is in check with every member of the party, to just see that the conduct is as it should be. If there are any issues that haven't been dealt with, the right channels then could come up, so that at least there's some damage control that is done in that particular
let's
regard.
do it in-house.
Yes,
then
yes.
Coming out and looking very scattered and making the entire unit look bad.
Yeah, maybe that one is it is okay to hold that particular media press briefing, but when it comes to in-house, discipline and conduct of the members of a political party, I think that should also be something that should be emphasized and held a bit more often, just to make sure everyone is in check. And considering the current situation, obviously people are sitting on the edge of their seats, so it's possible that they do not know the fate of what tomorrow might actually bring. So just to keep them in the loop and mentor them or make sure that everything is going in line, I think would also be a good thing. So on that note, we'll take a break and we'll come back with more news after this.
Welcome back to News Report. My name is KAMOTA MAYONDI.
And I'm SALIFYANJI BWEUPE.
And if you have anything to tell us, if you'd like to get in touch, you can reach us on our text line, which is 0976 599 547. The number is on the bottom of the screen. Would like to hear from you. So if you have any contributions to the conversation tonight on News Report, do send us a text message. And now getting into the rest of the stories. So the Transparency International Zambia and Action Aid have condemned the continued mismanagement of public funds by parastatal bodies who keep flouting financial management regulations. So in a joint statement by TIZ and Action Aid, Country Director Natlucha Ziwa welcomed the release of the 4 audit reports by the Office of the Auditor General last week. And in these reports, they highlighted that several parastatal bodies and other other statutory institutions for the financial year ended 31st December 2018. In this particular special report, it was highlighted that there were several things that were amiss and not expected from these particular institutions. So the duo stated that the contents of the report were a great concern for the 2 organizations and civil society in general. So we'll highlight a few of the anomalies that were revealed from this particular report from the parastatal bodies and other statutory institutions. So some of the anomalies noted were the non-compliance with statutory obligations. According to their analysis, 10 parastatals, representing about 60% of the audited parastatals, all failed to remit statutory obligations to the Zambia Revenue Authority, the National Pension Scheme, as well as Workers' Compensation Fund. And some of these parastatals concerned were the Citizen Economic Empowerment Commission, CEC, the Examination Council of Zambia. We have the Patents and Companies Registration Agency, PACRA, the Zambia Telecommunications Company, Zamtel Limited, to mention a few. And so these collectively failed to remit about 3.4 billion worth of statutory obligations, despite deductions having been effected on employee emoluments, and further stated that it is not only immoral but also damning verdict on the financial management capabilities of these particular parastatals. And I'll just to pause for a second here and just get into the fact that it's such a bad look to have these parastatals failing to do what it is that they're supposed to do. Like you're in part
and what they demand,
right?
From people,
like you're
like statutory bodies, yeah.
Right. For example, we have, PACRA failing to remit certain things when in essence you exist for people to remit statutory to file their company returns with you, those type of things. So when it comes to how bad it looks that these agencies are not doing the things that the government needs them to do, and they're in part connected to the government, it's very, very shameful. And when you look at the financial impact of their failing to remit statutory obligations, this is money that we are losing out, right? This is money that can go into development.
Exactly.
This is money that will, say, for example, if we
education
have
as well.
or would we need to be so indebted if we had systems working so well that we're able to collect, for example, an entire 3.4 billion in whatever statutory obligations these are. So this is very unacceptable. And so do you have anything to add? I'm just I'm just going on a mini rant.
No, it's okay. It just really took my mind to just also talk about one thing that I saw circulating. I do not know if this is true or not, or which institution that is, where there was a sign saying they're no longer doing any, COVID-19 tests. Or because they had run out of testing kits as well. I'm just saying, now when it comes to issues with development, education, and also health, those are the 3 among the major things that the government should be focusing on and should be given enough attention to. Children need to be educated. We need the health facilities to have the medicines, to have the capacity to be able to deal with certain diseases and everything else. We need the construction, buildings to be put up when it comes to issues with constructions and infrastructure as well. So if we have, these bodies that are defaulting when it comes to remitting of, the required, taxes or everything else that they need to do, I think,
and just good governance.
Exactly,
really.
Yeah,
good governance.
True. And I know, to go on with the story, like inside the story, these two organizations also mentioned that maybe even like the people that are heading these organizations to just say, okay, we are unable to do this, we'll step down and let people that are able to actually do the right thing continue being in those places of positions. Do you think in most of these companies, do you think, is it the mindset of people, or it's people that are in these positions are unable to perform?
Well, there is in part that, like, for example, when you talk about is it the people or is it the structures? If we go back to the story, there's this particular unfortunate incident where the person acting as the company's secretary was not qualified to be a company secretary, which cost the LSMFs 185,600 kwacha to actually now pay for a legal firm to provide legal services to them. But then, so why is this person drawing a salary at the end of the day? So in part, it's issues of putting the wrong people in the wrong roles, and the report from the TIZ and Action Aid also says they're concerned with regard to internal controls, because it also does in part would come down to an internal control. What is the hiring process? How are we putting someone to play the role of company secretary and they're not qualified? And the role
I also stand to be corrected, sorry. When it comes to being a company secretary, one has to either be a qualified accountant, or it has to be a company secretary, like a body that a law firm, or a company secretary under a law firm that is able to provide these company secretarial services. And I think even when it comes to auditors, no one does their own auditing. Auditors are hired to actually do the audits for the company, because it helps in not really having so much to do as a company. Exactly, yes.
So I like when you talk about the fact that a company secretary, because even the law, it states the who can take that particular position of company secretary, and leadership is important. So if you, for example, have the wrong people in leadership, it trickles down in the organization. We will have people who are leading who don't exactly know what it is that they're supposed to do in this situation and in that situation. Getting back into some of the concerns that these particular organizations brought up, the fact that it seems like there were no internal controls, or that internal controls were being disregarded at will, and it appears to be an opportunity to misuse public funds. I'll read that again. So this is an extract from the statement. So it says, the duo stated that TIZ and Action Aid's concern was that in the absence of internal controls, or where these are disregarded at will, as the case appears to have been, opportunities to misuse public funds would not only exist, but also be perpetrated. And the fact that well over 40, listen to this amount, 40 million was lost as a result of weak internal controls attests to this. So it's really good to put the cost of actions, because sometimes we just think, corruption, or this particular agency is not working efficiently. What do those inefficiencies translate to when it comes to money? So we already have in the earlier part of the this story, where we had 185,600, I think, mentioned with regard to legal fees that we had to be paid when someone is there to draw a salary. We have 40 million lost because of weak internal controls. And you just gave an example as a country that is facing COVID-19 in what feels like a very strong second wave or first wave for us. We have situations where we don't have enough testing kits. Such monies could go to channel into our health services, to be channeled into our education services. So indeed, it's
even employment. Look,
right.
When you look at the transition from analog to digital, most of these statutory bodies now are moving towards the digital side of things. When you look at how when you look at ZRA, you look at NAPSA, you look at maybe FRA or ECZ, everything now is working, with technology. So before it gets to where it is now, where everything is entered, the data is entered into the system, you have the manual books or accounts that were there before. So obviously this will need people to start entering. For me, I feel instead of just having to transition from, it started now, so we can start if it's 2019 or 2020, let's start from 2020. No, let's go back to when the company was incorporated and see what we can clear out. Make sure everything is entered into the system. It's so much easier to go and dial in to say, okay, at this particular time, this is what, at this particular time, this is what happened as well. The same thing goes to healthcare services. I know for certain private hospitals now, everything is digitalized. You can just go there, tell them your NRC number or your card number, and they'll be able to pull out, your book or something.
Right.
So I think the same way should also now be happening when it comes to government, hospitals and clinics as well. Then it will allow for, a lot of clear, information will be given, everything will be entered into the system as it should be, because now you first of all, when you employ data personnel, people to do the data entry, won't be like for the longest period of time, but obviously you'd have given it, a time frame to say, okay, between this time and that time. So you have these young people probably that are still, unemployed, that could take up, such roles and responsibilities and just help you move forward.
Right.
So I don't think we should also just focus on infrastructure and education and health. Also, we have employment as well, that these monies, that people have defaulted or companies have defaulted on, that could have been used to actually empower young people as well.
So the TIZ and ActionAid have said that it is time that the country puts an end to the continued recurring irregularities in the Auditor General's report, and the duo since stated that they will seek direct engagement with the respective line ministers, not only to remind them of their obligations, but to address these particular issues as well.
Well, so on that, we move to Ndola, as the Ndola Magistrates Court has sentenced Madrin Numa, an MTN employee of Ndega Township, to 5 years imprisonment for assaulting a 5-year-old boy. Numa was arrested last year after the boy's mother, Caroline Mumba, 35, a resident of the same area, reported the case to police. According to the Copperbelt Police Commissioner, Charity Katanga, said on the material day the boy and his friends were playing outside Numa's house while lighting fireworks. She explained Numa threw a stone at the children, which hit the victim on the forehead and sustained a deep cut. After months on trial, Numa was convicted today and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment with hard labor. This is a report carried by Kalemba. It is actually very unfortunate that a reaction as this would cause a child to get hurt in a particular. Kids, come on, just go outside and tell them, stop doing that. If not, grab him or take him nicely, please. I don't say grab him roughly, but grab the boy, take him to the parents and say, this is what the boy is doing, I'm not happy about it, or maybe talk to him. I don't think we're at a point where we can discipline other people's children anymore. Growing up, my neighbors were also my parents. Like, they would tell me, stop that. Yes. But for now, it's a bit different. You tell off someone's child, hey,
not even
thunder and lightning.
Just even the fact that you actually touched my child's hand.
Yeah.
Like, you brought my child here. Those type of things.
Because that's one thing that's also now, which is of a concern in schools. Are teachers allowed to actually, discipline pupils as well? Because if they're bitten, the parent will go and shout at the teacher and say, no, why are you beating my child, this and that. So it's very, very unfortunate. I think this is also a lesson. We shouldn't really be too reactive when it comes to with children as well.
Or generally, I feel.
Yeah, regardless of who it is, we just need to really be careful with how we tread.
And we go into international news. So the heads of some of the world's biggest tech giants have faced a 5-hour grilling on the way they do business by members of the US Judiciary Subcommittee on Antitrust. The Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Apple are accused of stifling competition and monopolizing the industry free from regulation. They were also grilled about business ties with China, and it has been a year-long investigation by the US Congress, which claims to outline how current laws allow the companies to avoid liabilities. So we take a look at Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher, who's reporting from Capitol Hill.
The ranking member of
Fittingly, the tech giants appeared virtually to face questions, the subcommittee chairman making clear he sees a problem.
Their dominance is killing the small businesses, manufacturing, and overall dynamism that are the engines of the American economy. Their ability to dictate terms, call the shots, upend entire sectors, and inspire fear represent the powers of a private government.
This was meant to be an inquiry into business practices. Do the four companies, Google, Amazon, Apple and Facebook, stifle rivals and kill competition? One Republican immediately made clear he also wanted to talk about bias online.
We love the fact that these are American companies, but what's not great is censoring people, censoring conservatives, and trying to impact elections. And if it doesn't end, there has to be consequences.
From each of the four bosses, a common theme. They were innovators, job creators, the definition of American excellence.
There's room in retail for multiple winners. We compete against large, established players like Target, Costco, Kroger, and of course, Walmart, a company more than twice Amazon's size.
Our goal is the best, not the most. In fact, we don't have a dominant share in any market or in any product category where we do business.
Facebook boss Mark Zuckerberg faced questions about the purchase of another social media platform, Instagram. This, said one congressman, went to the heart of the inquiry.
Facebook saw Instagram as a threat that could potentially siphon business away from Facebook. And so rather than compete with it, Facebook bought it. This is exactly the type of anti-competitive acquisition that the antitrust laws were designed to prevent.
Mark Zuckerberg was asked about hate speech appearing on his site. He insisted he was committed to intercepting it before most users saw it. He said that the success rate was currently running at 89%, but he wanted to get that up to 99%. Zuckerberg also talked about the recent removal of misleading content around COVID-19 and treatments. Dangerous, he said.
We do prohibit content that will lead to imminent risk of harm, and stating that there's a proven cure for COVID when there is in fact none might encourage someone to go take something that could have some adverse effects. So we do take that down.
The subcommittee says it will hold new hearings in September. This is not the end for the tech giants, it's the start, and it puts them on notice. If they don't look at their operations, legislators will. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Capitol Hill.
There we have some international news, some of the big players facing a bit of a grilling over there. And on that note, we come to the end of Thursday night's edition of News Report, and getting into the stories that we led with. Minister of General Education expelled from cabinet, and police investigating video. TIZ Action Aid demand tough actions on Auditor General's report.
And Lusaka PF displeased with Bonnie Capeso. US lawmakers grill big tech CEOs at House antitrust hearing. Before we end news, we obviously were talking about the first story, and that's to do with whether the member of parliament, former the higher education minister, should actually resign from his position as MP. We had fired. Yes, position as MP.
Oh, position as MP.
Yes.
Okay, right.
So
okay.
We have two pending by-elections as well. So if we were to add this one as well, if he were to resign, meaning that will probably be a cost. Can we manage that cost as well? So should he resign on moral grounds and still allow for the by-election to carry on, or he should apologize and still keep his seat as well?
That is an interesting question to ask yourself. We'll see how it unfolds, though it's good to always have in light the financial impact of some of these things. Well, we did lose 2 members of parliament, so this one is hanging in the balance. I guess we'll see how the rest of the story unfolds.
Sure. If you have any responses towards that, please be sure to send your messages to 0976-599-547, as well as our Facebook page. You can send your comments and we'll be able to read them through when we come through next time. So from me and the entire production team, I'm saying good night and God bless.